Doamnelor și domnilor, bine v-am regăsit! Suntem astăzi la Varnița și realizăm emisiunea noastră cu ambasadorul delegației Uniunii Europene în Republica Moldova, Janis Mazeiks. Domnule ambasador, în primul rând vă mulțumim că ați acceptat invitația noastră la această emisiune și vrem să vă întrebăm care este scopul vizitei dumneavoastră la Varnița. Știți că este o zonă mai specifică, zona de securitate. De ce ați venit astăzi aici?
Yes, indeed, I would agree that this is a specific area of Republicii Moldova, and I hadn't been here before, so I had several elements to my visit. I met with the mayor, discussing the typicalities of the municipality. We visited the Lyceum here, where I had the youth talks with the young people, telling them and answering their questions about the European Union. And now we're visiting one of the projects that has been supported by the European Union some years ago, and I'm very glad to see that this project has reached a stage of sustainability, that it's able to help the people who have particular needs, young people, Ukrainian refugees, to make their lives better.
Înțelegem că Uniunea Europeană investește inclusiv pe tot teritoriul Republicii Moldova, inclusiv în zona de securitate.
Yes, we try to have projects all over the country, and that's what we are doing in all parts of Republica Moldova, also in the Transnistrian region. When it comes to the region around the Dniester River, we have a particular set of projects called confidence building measures. So these are projects aimed at trying to build bridges between the different parts of society so that people also cooperate, or that these are projects that help both the people on the left bank and on the right bank. For instance, if we have some competitions for grants for businesses, and there would be some beneficiaries on the left bank and some on the right.
Înțeleg și știu că acest proiect care își propune, susținut financiar de Uniunea Europeană, care își propune să unească cele două maluri ale Nistrului, au început mai de mult. După câțiva ani de implementare, dă și rezultate. Reușește Uniunea Europeană să unească prin eforturile sale cele două maluri?
Well, we do not intend by these projects to resolve the conflict, because for that there is a need for a political settlement. That is more a question about the negotiations, about the process of 5+2 negotiation, which is currently suspended. These projects are more intended to continue maintaining links between the people on the both banks of the Dniester River. And that's, I think, is also very important, because we can't arrive just at the political settlement if the people would not have interactions. I'm encouraged that there is in the Republic of Moldova quite a lot of interactions between both banks of the Dniester River, and that's, I think, is one of the advantages of the country in comparison to other countries who have unresolved conflicts.
Revenind la problema transnistreană și inclusiv eforturile pe care le depune Uniunea Europeană în rezolvarea problemelor de pe cele două maluri ale Nistrului, ați văzut odată ce ați intrat în satul Varnița, ați văzut un post bilateral controlat de către Federația Rusă și pacificatorii regiunii transnistrene și vreau să vă întreb acum cum vedeți apelul Tiraspolului ca Rusia să intervină și să spargă așa zisa blocadă economică. Vorbim aici de taxele vamale pe care Chișinăul le aplică tuturor agenților economici care importă și exportă, începând de vara anului trecut aceste taxe.
Well, first on the customs code, this had been one of the things that we as the European Union had been encouraging the Republic of Moldova to adopt, because this was not, in fact, it had nothing to do with the Transnistrian region. It was the need to improve the legislation of the country in the customs area. And yes, one of the effects of that is that also the Transnistrian customs business operators need to pay the customs duties like all other economic operators. So when coming to the statements that have come out of the Transnistrian region, We of course have had certain concern, but we have also seen that the de facto authorities have also been very careful to prevent further escalation, also on the content of the statements. Like, for instance, we saw that when they had mentioned the request for assistance from Russian Federation, they also very clearly said that what they hope for is diplomatic assistance to the to the Russian Federation. Of course, it was also quite significant that it was not only a statement that would be addressed to the Russian Federation, but also to other actors, including those of the European Union, which I find as an encouraging sign that there also the perspective from the de facto authorities is changing, perhaps.
Care totuși ar fi resorturile din spatele unei astfel de cereri, adică de a sparge așa zisa blocadă economică? Mai ales am văzut în ultima perioadă că Federația Rusă cumva a sfidat cerințele autorităților de la Chișinău și a organizat alegeri prezidențiale aici în regiunea transnistreană. Vorbim de alegerile prezidențiale pentru Federația Rusă. Care ar fi resorturile din spatele unei astfel de cereri? De ce cer cei din regiunea transnistreană ca Federația Rusă cumva să intervină și să rezolve problema privind taxele vamale?
Well, I think it is a reality that the Russian Federation does have quite a lot of influence over the Transnistrian region, and that is, I guess, why they still continue trying to involve the Russian Federation there. If we look at the substance, of course, the Russian Federation's influence there also has been reducing, and the possibilities are reducing when it comes to the security picture. Of course, it has been very beneficial for the security of the region that the Russian army has been pushed back from the Kherson, and that's why the physical security of the Republicii Moldova is much safer than during the earlier stages of the war. When it comes to the economy, also for us, we have engagement with the Transnistrian region. 2/3 of the exports from Transnistria go to the European Union markets. So I think that the possibilities for Russian Federation to affect the situation will continue to diminish, but of course they will be one of the points of reference for the de facto authorities also for the coming time.
La moment ne aflăm într-o perioadă plină de provocări, mai ales că Republica Moldova are anul acesta atât alegeri prezidențiale cât și un referendum. Avem o guvernare pro-europeană care a oferit mai multe oportunități, a implementat un șir de reforme în vederea aderării Republicii Moldova la Uniunea Europeană. Cum credeți? Care este cea mai mare, cea mai reală provocare la moment cu care se confruntă Republica Moldova în vederea parcursului european pe care și l-a propus această guvernare?
I think the biggest challenge is to maintain this very strong determination to move forward with European integration. What we have seen in the past 2 years is that both the President, the Parliament and the government have been very clearly pushing for reforms that have been benefiting the change in the country, but also for the European integration. And that's why it has been possible for Republica Moldova to become, in a very short period of time, a candidate country, and to get to the decision of the European Council to start accession negotiations. What is important now is, if you're asking about the biggest challenge is to maintain this very high speed of movement forward, because for that you need that this movement for European integration is maintained by all the political forces that will be represented also in the coming years, because it will take quite a lot of years, and if there would be change in the politics where there would be less enthusiasm among the politicians about the European integration, well, of course this process can slow down, and we have seen in the past countries that have lost the enthusiasm for European integration, of course, then these ambitious goals of becoming EU members by 2030, of course, would also be pushed back.
Iată că, așa cum am zis și cum spuneți dumneavoastră, Uniunea Europeană a fost și este, de fapt, alături de Republica Moldova de mai mulți ani și vreau să vă întreb care sunt domeniile prioritare în care investește Uniunea Europeană în Republica Moldova. E vorba de reforme, de politici sau e vorba și de altceva?
Well, our reality is that we have projects in practically every sphere of life, ranging from independent media to education to social canteens. But of course, we also have priorities. And these priorities reflect also the realities of the Republic of Moldova. One of such priorities is energy efficiency, because we saw in the past 2 years how important it was to strengthen the resilience of the Republic of Moldova from external shocks, and how to reduce the consumption of unsustainable energy, how to increase production of energy from renewable sources. So all these areas will continue also in the future. But also we see other areas that need more work. One is the raising of the human capital, so that people are qualified and able to change the country in the areas that changes is necessary. And similarly, we will pay additional attention to agricultural sector. Well, we have seen also the problems that have been linked to agriculture, and our assistance has been linked to helping also that sector to change, because some of the best success stories when it comes to agriculture in Moldova are in the areas which have been able to change, like for instance the wine sector, where you have managed in a very short time period, in literally some 10 years, to dramatically increase quality, and as a result also receive much better prices, to be able to reach the European markets and not to depend on markets that are unpredictable. And that's why we also continue projects in the agricultural sector.
Ați nominalizat eficiența energetică, agricultură, drepturile omului, inclusiv femeile. De ce s-a decis să se investească anume în aceste domenii?
We are in Republic Moldova present in very many areas because we see these challenges in many areas. But our engagement reflects our values. So for us, our assistance here, and that's unrelated to the candidate country status, assistance for us is embodiment of our value of solidarity. We have projects not only in the Republic of Moldova, but we see here that they are all meaningful. So we are working in those areas where we either see some shortcomings or particular opportunities. Like sometimes these areas also overlap. For instance, we have social enterprises that we support, and when I visit these social enterprises, I also see that majority of the people who are running these social enterprises are women, because that's also one value that is perhaps particularly important for women, and so that's why sometimes these areas also overlap.
Iată că în ultima perioadă se atrage, mai ales după începutul războiului din Ucraina, se atrage o atenție deosebită la capitolul securitatea țării. Am văzut o strategie nouă națională de securitate, un buget crescut pentru domeniul de apărare și securitate. La capitolul securitate militară a Republicii Moldova, investește cumva Uniunea Europeană?
Yes, we also support the Republic of Moldova when it comes to the sector of the defense. In the past we didn't do that, but unfortunately the Russian aggression in Ukraine changed the perspective of the European Union on many things, and that's why now we have also quite meaningful program of support for the Moldovan armed forces to rebuild the capacity which has been ignored for 30 years, where there has been no investment for many years. But this is not the, let's say, the main focus for the European Union, because First and foremost, we are working as a peace project, and that is also the philosophy behind the projects that we are doing in Republicii Moldova, because we believe that with investment in economy, with investment in human rights, you are building stability, you're also building peace, because with these developments, countries develop peacefully.
În ultimii ani, subiectul propagandei a venit în atenția publicului, inclusiv din Republica Moldova. Înainte de începerea războiului din Ucraina, ucrainenii declarau că înainte de a ajunge tancurile rusești pe teritoriul ucrainean, au ajuns războiul informațional prin televizoarele ucrainene cu mesaje violente. Dumneavoastră, ce părere aveți despre măsurile luate de Chișinău în vederea contracarării propagandei și dezinformării?
I think that it is definitely important to counter different disinformation and propaganda efforts, including for the reason that you have mentioned, but primarily because this is counter to the philosophy of what independent media should be about. At the same time, it's very important to strike the right balance, because the freedom of expression, freedom of media is equally very important. What we have seen in the past 2 years is that the Audiovisual Council has done quite a good job in following the developments in the media sphere, and now we see that there is also a new actor, which is the Commission on the Investment Screening, that has taken the first decision. What is important is that these decisions must be well grounded, and that they are clear, the reasons why they are taken the way they are, and that they can be contested in courts. But there's also the other angle, which is not just countering what's coming as propaganda, but also shaping one's own message, and that's why I think it is very important that there is being established a new Stratcom Center, which is analyzing the different sorts of disinformation and propaganda that comes not only through media but also through social media, and then can provide advice what messages should be sent, what lies should be countered by either media or by officials.
În același timp, există probleme grave la capitolul securitatea informațională. Vorbim aici de propagandă și dezinformare în zona de securitate, în această zonă în care ne aflăm. Dacă o să mergem astăzi chiar în prima casă din apropiere de unde suntem, o să vedem că regiunea transnistreană transmite prin emițătoarele sale în jur de 15 canale rusești care ajung inclusiv în zona de securitate, în localitățile din dreapta Nistrului. În acest sens, bine, nu este o întrebare către ambasadorul UE, dar cum credeți ar trebui să se intervină de către autoritățile de la Chișinău de a stopa și de a închide robinetul, inclusiv a blura semnalele care vin din regiunea transnistreană?
I think it is equally important that people can access objective information, because sometimes trying to close all holes is not really possible. What is possible then is to send a message from the authorities and from the independent media in particular of the perspective of how you see the development here, and that's why it is important that where it is possible to develop a free debate on all these issues, including the very painful ones.
În decembrie 2023, Consiliul European a deschis deschiderea negocierilor de aderare a țării noastre la Uniunea Europeană și vreau să vă întreb ce înseamnă, de fapt, deschiderea procesului de negociere și cât de dificilă este această etapă.
Well, the negotiations have not started yet, but we expect that they will start rather soon. What the negotiations will mean is that first the Moldovan authorities will be looking at the European legislation and practice and looking how much the Moldovan realities are in line with that practice. And then the opposite process will take place, that the European officials we'll be looking at the Moldovan legislation and Moldovan practice and get to their view on how big is the divergence. And then it will be the matter of negotiations on how to close these gaps. Why this is important? Because the purpose of the negotiations is to get the Republic of Moldova to the same level as all other member states of the European Union, because it is the process of preparing the Republic of Moldova for full membership in the European Union with all the rights and obligations. And since we do have these common rules, then it is important that they are also applied equally. So this will mean that there will be first quite scrupulous examination of the legislation, but also scrupulous examination of the practice, because what matters for the European Union is not just that the laws are okay, but what will be important to see is also whether the institutions who are applying the laws are strong enough that they have the mandate, and not only that they have the mandate, but the people are qualified to do their job, and not only they are qualified, but they also have the resources. Because, for instance, if it is a laboratory, of course, it doesn't help that there's a building, that there's people. It's important that they know what they're doing and that they have the resources with which they can do their laboratory work. So that's what is coming. As you can imagine, this will be quite detailed work, and it will cover many areas of life, because all this EU legislation, EU acquis, is divided in 33 chapters, which cover everything from agriculture to education to capital markets to fisheries to foreign policy. And in all these areas we will be looking how to level the legal and practical territory.
Iată că oficialii vorbeau despre armonizarea a aproximativ 10.000 de legi existente astăzi în Republica Moldova, peste 10.000 de legi, să le armonizeze la legislația Uniunii Europeană. Dumneavoastră cunoașteți foarte bine etapele prin care a trecut țara dumneavoastră de baștină, vorbim aici de Letonia. De cât timp a avut nevoie Letonia să treacă toată legislația la directivele europene și cum credeți, reușim până în 2030?
I think that for Latvia the time frame was roughly the same as was the ambition of Republic of Moldova to. I will not be able to give you exact dates, but obviously Latvia is of comparatively the same size as Republic of Moldova. So there have been smaller countries that have joined the European Union than Republic of Moldova. So I think that it should be possible. What is important is to have the determination and readiness to invest the necessary resources. Sometimes being able to also to go for painful compromises. Sometimes it's also about simply not giving in to some vested interests, because quite often there will be some areas where there are people who are benefiting from the bad situation of today, and they will make up stories how much worse it would be if they would change. And of course that is not something that we would like to see.
O altă condiție de aderare la Uniunea Europeană este combaterea corupției. Astăzi ați putea da o notă unde este Republica Moldova la acest capitol, cât de departe suntem de a combate corupția și cum vedeți eforturile autorităților de la Chișinău?
Perhaps I would qualify it as that you are approaching the end of the first stage. Meaning that by now there are already the first results. For 2 years there has been processes of cleaning the judiciary. We have been supporting the process of pre-vetting, which is about to finish. Now the vetting processes have been set in motion for the justices and for the prosecutors. So we have managed to address the highest levels of the judiciary. What we haven't done yet, that's going to be done soon. What will take more time is the lower levels, because the idea is that once these higher levels are cleaned, then there will be more possibilities for the systems themselves to do the self-cleaning, to eradicate the corruption at the lower levels, and that will take more time. But it is already very important that this first stage is happening. We have seen the results, like for instance already last year we saw the pre-vetting process where out of 29 candidates only 5 candidates passed. And we have seen a number of judges, a number of prosecutors who have resigned just not to go through this process. So this shows that there are already some results in this fight against corruption. Also, very importantly, the fact that the decision in the case of Ilan Shor has been adopted. That's one of the major milestones for the country. But clearly, there will be still some time when people will be encountering corrupt people in the justice sector, because this most likely is at that level which has not been reached by the cleaning yet.
Vedem într-adevăr o rezistență foarte mare din partea judecătorilor, din partea procurorilor. Vom vedea până la urmă cu ce se va finaliza tot acest proces, dar vreau să vă întreb cum s-a schimbat sprijinul financiar al Uniunii Europene după ce Republica Moldova a obținut statutul de candidat.
I wouldn't necessarily put the link only to the candidate country status, because some of the increase in the support has been simply because you have faced these unprecedented crises. So to cover only these crises, like the energy crisis, like the refugee crisis, one way or another, the European Union has in 2 years invested more than 1 billion euros, which is an unprecedented amount for Republicii Moldova, because to put things into perspective, in the past our projects which we would do normally in a year are to the value of roughly 40 to 60 million euros a year. So you can imagine that this is some 20 times more in just 2 years. But at the same time also our project volume has grown, so perhaps this can at least partly be linked to the candidate country status. So now the value of our projects annually is somewhere around 120 million euros annually.
Iată că în drum spre Varnița ați văzut segmentat inscripții cu Moldova Europeană 2030. Cum ar trebui să arate Moldova Europeană în 2030? Sau cel puțin cum vă doriți dumneavoastră să arate Moldova în 2030?
Well, of course, I hope that Moldova Europeană would first and foremost mean that the accession negotiations have successfully ended, and that Moldova has fulfilled all the conditions for being an EU member state. But also I think and I hope, and on some of it I'm sure, what we will see is changes also in the people's practical lives. Sometimes it is about changing the infrastructure, sometimes it's about changing and improving the business modalities, and sometimes it is things that affect more than one thing. One example I can give is my favorite placintas. In the past, what had been discovered is that cheese placintas don't have cheese. Because these had been substituted by vegetable oils, and consumers were unaware that they are buying something that is not there. And thanks to the implementation also of the EU standards and using the EU support, this has been changed, that now increasingly consumers can be sure that their cheese placintas contain cheese, and they are not having products that would be of inferior quality. So this is not about the customers' rights, this is also about fair business practices, and this is what the European Union is should be about also for the common citizens.
Înțeleg că Uniunea Europeană este despre standarde bune de viață, despre standarde bune în alimentația oamenilor, așa cum a zis dumneavoastră, despre plăcinta cu brânză și ne primesc europenii cu plăcintă cu brânză, cu haine naționale, acum despre mituri, da, ca să combate miturile. Ne vor primi europenii cu plăcintele noastre și cu mămăliga acolo?
Well, I am sure that we will, and in fact, as you rightly said, the standards are there for a reason. It's not that it would be the European bureaucracy wanting just to tick off some boxes. These standards have been elaborated so that the rights of the consumers are protected, rights of workers are protected, and these standards are there for the people for one way or another. And yes, I am sure that there is space for Moldovan placintas, for Moldovan wine on the Moldovan markets, as we see increasingly everywhere. Well, we know that Moldovans are already exporting placintas to Romania, that there is plums from Moldova in Germany and in Latvia. And I hope that this will be the case also in the future, that this presence of Moldovan exports will be even bigger. Of course, already now the EU is the biggest market for the Moldovan goods. It's 2/3 of your exports, but I'm sure that this growth will continue in the future because this is a big market, this is a prosperous market, it's a predictable market, and it is part of your future.
Și, domnule ambasador, o ultimă întrebare. Ați vorbit despre reforme și inclusiv armonizarea legislației Republicii Moldova la acquis comunitar. Ce nemulțumire are Bruxelles la moment față de felul în care guvernarea Republicii Moldova îndeplinește aceste reforme? Există nemulțumiri în acest sens?
Well, mostly we are satisfied with the way forward, and that's you can see also in the evaluation of the European Commission. Because initially there were 9 steps that the European Commission was requesting from Republicii Moldova. Then by the autumn of last year, 6 of them were deemed fulfilled, now, and then there were 3 outstanding. By now 2 of them have also been fulfilled, and primarily now it is the focus on the appointments of the highest judiciary authorities, but I'm also sure that there will be situations when we will be dissatisfied with the actions of the authorities because, well, that's always the case in the candidate countries, that as in any country there are competing interests. Sometimes there is legislation that is rushed, that it has not been properly consulted either with the international partners nor with the civil society here, so that is part of our advice also to sometimes slow down a bit and to allow for adequate time for discussions, and when the decisions are made also to have clear reasoning for these decisions so that we understand why these decisions are taken, but also those who live here in the country understand why the particular decision has been made.
Domnule ambasador, vă mulțumesc foarte mult că ați acceptat să participați în cadrul acestei emisiuni în zona de securitate, aici la Varnița, și vă mulțumim pentru deschidere față de cetățenii Republicii Moldova și față de cetățenii din aceste localități care se află în nemijlocită apropiere de regiunea transnistreană. Aceste vizite cu siguranță le oferă încredere că cele 2 maluri ale Nistrului vor putea fi unite într-o bună zi, inclusiv aceste vizite pe care le faceți dumneavoastră ca fiind șeful delegației Uniunii Europene le dau speranță că în 2030 Republica Moldova va ajunge acolo unde vrea să ajungă, inclusiv în Uniunea Europeană, cu plăcintele noastre, cu hainele noastre naționale, cu problemele pe care le avem în interior, spre o lume mai civilizată.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and indeed that is also my hope that the Republic of Moldova will join as a reunited country in united Europe.
Doamnelor și domnilor, atâtea le-am avut pentru astăzi. Vă reamintesc că am discutat cu șeful delegației Uniunii Europene la Chișinău, Janis Mazeiks, iar eu, Renata Lopăcescu, vă mulțumesc pentru atenție. La revedere!